the the labor movement, just in general. And the civil rights. I mean, that's a major one that kind of reminds us of what we're up against today, unfortunately. That we're kind of repeating history in the sense that the police is abusing their power and not letting us just peacefully. So we have a right to.
So what most people think about when they think about the civil rights movement is the 1954 to 1970 civil rights movement, because believe it or not, there's been more than one civil rights movement in the United States. But the one that they think about mostly, which heroes like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were all a part of that movement. And again, they remember that nonviolent idea that was put forth by Martin Luther King, and the passiveness that led to people seeing what the injustice that was going on, and that's continued to happen even more with a passive action, with sets of passive actions. Because I wanted you to answer the question of what makes a social movement memorable. So from just talking there, we talked about some things, and there's 4 things I'd like to point out of what makes a social movement memorable. So one, you started talking about like the ideas that they have, or the idea behind the movement, which we call an ideology. And Eric was on the mic just a little while ago talking about, is this ideology or not? And one of the very key components of a memorable, and we'll later talk about a successful a movement, according to what we've seen in history, is having a clear and presented ideology. And I think one of the things that we're starting to hear, what is being attacked about the movement right now, Occupy movement, is that people are trying to say there is no ideology. They're just a bunch of people, running around trying to stop things or whatever. Another thing that is important to remember about what makes social movements memorable is the reactions that they inspire, right? People telling stories about Cesar Chavez and the movement are reactions that people do all over the place, did then and they still do now, right? There's also reactions of the civil rights movement when people would see on TV people sitting in line and having water cannon shot on them. Think about what's happened recently with the pepper spray, right? It's the reactions that are inspired by a movement that makes a movement memorable. So intentionality of inspiring reactions is an important thing that the Occupy Tucson movement, or any movement, should be thinking about. What reactions do we want intentional as well? The methods, or what we call tactics, that are utilized in any social movement is also one of the things that makes a social movement memorable. So nonviolent tactics, or tactics that are institutional in nature versus individual in nature, are things that make, or one of the things that make a social movement memorable. And the last thing is another thing that we think what makes a movement memorable is the social change that it elicits. So if a movement, if we can attach some kind of social change that we see to an actual, the tactics or the presence of a movement, then that movement is memorable, is more memorable than if we can't attach any specific type of social change to it, right? So we can say that in the 1960s or the 1970s, there was legislation, there was a lot of change in how businesses discriminated, right? We can see a lot of different types of social change that occurred, and we can say there was a movement that preceded that social change, and because of that, we can say that that movement had some kind of effect and was successful or is memorable.
Basically, what did it do? What did it accomplish?
What did it do? What did it accomplish? Right. And these are things that are really important in understanding social movements.